Namit, welcome to India today. This clearly is a happy occasion, not just for you, but for all of us. Congratulations, first of all, for winning not your first, but your seventh Academy Award for the company. I want to talk to you a little bit about just the fact that, you have been working so hard and so diligently at putting out one title after the other. It's a very challenging field to be in because technology is changing by the minute and by the second. What do you make of this win for Dune and how special is it for you?
So Dune to me is an incredibly valuable win because I feel like, for all the films that we've done and for all of the good success that the company has had and the brilliant work we've done, Dune to me characterizes the next version of how visual effects and storytelling has emerged. And I keep saying to all my colleagues and people in the industry that I believe we will have a time when there will be a conversation before Dune and after Dune. Because, for the first time, we've been able to take not just a film and create some beautiful wow moments, which are exquisite, which are always hard in itself. But we've taken an entire film and put, with the use of tremendous direction from the director, production design, cinematography, music, visual effects, all coming together seamlessly to create this experience of watching an entire film where you never feel taken away. You don't get back and look at it and say, wow, because you're actually sort of engrossed in the film. And that to me is a big success of how, storytelling and cinema has continued to evolve. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have been part of that and actually helping make that happen.
Absolutely. And Dune, of course, has won Best Visual Effects at the Oscars. Interestingly, you had another title in the nomination. You had No Time to Die as well. Two very diverse, very different films. How do you feel when you have two titles pit against each other? Do you have a favorite?
So, it's a very interesting question. So, James Bond is an all-time favorite character that I grew up and, everybody who knows the movie business knows of James Bond. The more interesting thing is that I think for the first time have been able to bring James Bond to the visual effects Oscar in about 40, 50 years. So that's a big step forward, knowing very well that it's a very different approach to visual effects than, let's say, Dune has. James Bond is all about making sure that when you see James Bond, you got to feel like he's actually doing everything. And that's the character. That's what he does. It's very close to real life and reality. And that it has its own challenges and has its own complexities. And I think what the Academy saw was a very high standard of that delivery in that seamlessness where, people have seen the work on James Bond and feel like they could not, for their eyes, believe that that was not done practically. So, from a visual effects standpoint, that was a great benchmark from that. So a personal love for Bond and then a professional progression in how Dune is changing the way filmmaking will happen in the future. So, it's there's going to be conflict. And now that the verdict is out, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's well put. I quickly also want to speak to you a bit about while growing up as a child, watching cinema, what were some of the films that left impression on you that you were like, wow, this has blown my mind away? How did he do that? Were there any big ticket films like that?
So there's lots of them, that obviously have had that impact on me. One of the first films, I was, growing up in a Bollywood Hindi film family, Shahenshah was my father's last big film with Mr. Bachchan. So I was a massive Amitabh Bachchan fan, like most people in that generation were. So I was no different. So all his films, watched it many, many dozens of times. So films from that era. Agnipath was my favorite film as a kid with Mr. Bachchan in it. Must have seen that, 60, 70 times, just obsessed about and wanted to be a director actually after that, after watching that film. And then some of the other films that I watched like Jurassic Park and Forrest Gump, these films really got me into the business because when I saw Jurassic Park, I was blown away by the fact that there's an imagination that you can actually bring dinosaurs that nobody has seen in the last, I don't know how many millions of years, and you can make an entire film and bring them in. And just the ability to do that was a big inspiration for me to say, how do we now do what they are doing and tell a story that people are going, I remember watching Jurassic Park and going back and watching it again because I was mesmerized by that. Or seeing Forrest Gump, which is my favorite film of all time. How they both won Best Visual Effects Oscars back in the day. But because one was watching a dinosaur, and the other one was telling you the story of this character and how he goes through everything, and the visual effects in that again were very seamless for that time. So that sort of founded or became the foundation for me in my journey, and that has really helped me evolve in that pursuit of excellence that we live by today.
Right. You touched upon a few Bollywood titles and iconic titles, like you mentioned, Shehenshah, and obviously a few others. I want to speak to you a bit about how Bollywood is adapting to changing times. Given the fact that the audience is exposed to so much of VFX and visual effects through Hollywood films, whether it's Marvel, whether it's Spider-Man, there is every month and every day we have technology that challenges another title. Where do you see Bollywood evolving? How do you see it evolving? What is your take on where the industry is going?
So I think, all of these are no different if you ask me, because they're all an evolution of the tech. And visual effects to me is just another way to tell the story. So if you're going to tell a story of Batman or Spider-Man or Iron Man, you're going to try and create some difference for the audience and what that is going to stand for. And that's where I think companies like us have a challenge or an opportunity to bring something unique and different every time and make it more exciting. As far as India is concerned, it's the same thing, that today, if we're going to make Indian movies and stand against the Western movies or any other films in the world, we got to be able to take that challenge on. And I believe we can take it on very comfortably. And that is something that I feel that with the way our business is growing and evolving, we have tremendous opportunity to actually do that. And the fact that India has its own treasure of characters and stories and history, I think there is no limit to what we can actually create and how much we can create before the audiences get the fatigue, because we've not even touched the surfaces yet on that.
Is that something that would excite you? You just mentioned, we do have mythological characters, we have rich history and diverse folklore. Is that something that you think should be tapped and there's potential?
No, 100%. And actually we're doing it already. So we worked on RRR with Mr. Rajamouli, but more as in the capacity of a service partner with him. And again, that relies on some of our iconic characters of Ram and Bhima and other such characters. So that's sort of there. Brahmastra is a film we're co-producing with Ayan Mukherjee directing and Karan Johar and Foxstar Studios producing alongside, which is a film that, again, touches upon the history of our mythology and universe and brings the essential powers of that and tells that story in a modern day reality. And then the next film that I'm incredibly passionate about is Ramayana. We're going to make Ramayana for not just India, but my aspiration is to show it to the world. And that's something that is in quick succession next to happen.
Wow, that sounds exciting. I truly believe that Lord of the Rings, that's our very own Lord of the Rings, and we can really ace it if it's done right.
Of course, and I think it's got bigger and more opportunity to make it even more bigger and more exciting. And that's something that I'm pursuing personally.
Right. On a side note, I have to speak to you about what happened at the Oscars today, what the entire world and social media is talking about. What was your reaction when it happened, and whose side are you on?
I think, it certainly is a shock when something like that happens, because nobody's expecting it. To be honest, even the people who are involved in that incident could never have anticipated that. There's tremendous regard and respect for talent like Will Smith. Chris Rock has his own audience and a certain following in the world. These are like most, I would call accidents or, things that can happen inadvertently on both sides, I think is what has played out. I don't take any sides because I've kind of grown up in the industry and I understand people are extremely emotional, and that's part of what we do. Now I'm not justifying it and saying that's the way it should be, but I can understand why that happens. And as long as people apologize and acknowledge that what is happening is not in good taste, or try and do their own to mend it and fix it so that we don't have to subject the rest of the world to this sort of an unnecessary exposure. I think everybody understands that that's how it should be. So I'm more excited about our win and frankly ready to look beyond and hopefully this becomes an aberration that sorts itself out, and they're all very smart and sensible people, and I'm sure they'll do the right thing.
How is your team celebrating this sweet victory? Given the fact that you already have 6 other titles behind this, is that becoming a trend? Are you guys getting used to winning?
You can never get used to winning. Frankly, in any competitive sport, you can ask anybody who is competitive and fights really hard to win. You don't ever take winning as the norm, because the moment you do that, that's the end of winning for you. So I do believe that that's not at all, but we are going to have a little celebration here in London on Friday. And more importantly, my communication to my team is that the celebration has to be in not just the Oscar win, but the fact that our work and our conviction in delivering something so unique has gained the best validation in the world. And that should encourage us to really push the agenda of filmmaking and use of technology to the next level. And I'm very convinced that that is going to play out successfully. And the teams are incredibly excited, about this win, especially after what's been a very hard time in the pandemic with everybody working from home and, the challenges that everybody's faced.
Sure. I do truly believe that there is a post-Dune and a pre-Dune and a post-Dune era. And I think in the next few years and months, perhaps you're going to see the impact of what you've achieved with Dune. On a parting note, Namit, what can we expect next from your studio, and what can audience expect, given that now there is so much of interest in VFX?
I think, as I mentioned, Brahmastra and Ramayana are the two films that we will produce. We're also producing a film called Garfield. It's an animation film with the partnership with Alcon Entertainment, and Sony Pictures is distributing that. Chris Pratt is the voice of Garfield, so that's another big, very prestigious animation film. And beyond that, it's business as usual. We continue to work with some of the best filmmakers out there who are getting ready to make their next bunch of films, and we are hopeful of, like every year, getting ready to work on those and come back next year with something cool as well.
Absolutely. I hope we have this conversation again next year and we're celebrating another win for you guys. Congratulations again, and thank you for speaking to India today.